To your narrator's surprise, when you this thing we did this morning about the commercial, I said, well, this debt that we're talking about that, but that doesn't it's really not like aligned with current events except in the big sense. But what was it? The whole point? You sort of like know what we're watching, we're listening to, and what channel we have on or something, so you were able to say something. But this thing about it does apply to everything, including like what's what the situation is actually with like healthcare, why they might be playing out some political theater because like it's part of the we're caught in the we're in the middle of the we're one of the people subsumed into the neoliberal project. When something's happening in the transnational sector, we're subsumed into it too. Um, and we made the point like that, like right. I mean, when you point it out to someone who's like sort of unaware. By the way, there's nothing wrong with being. This is what I'm getting at. There's nothing wrong with being unaware because it's not told to people. It's not told like in the news or in the newspapers. But it's people say, well, I know there's a lot going on, but I don't know about that, or I don't have time. That's why one of my your narratives like dislike for a certain kind of person who calls themselves liberal, like obsessed with the idea that everyone's like really dumb and ignorant. No, I mean, people are busy with other things, and they would hope that they're probably not getting the full story about current events, but like who has time, like they have other things to do, like money has no value. They may be paying off a debt. They may be raising a kid. They may. But the thing is that like what as it relates to healthcare, what we said this morning with the commercial about Belize, right? It's just that we're subsumed into. I'm getting to something. We are subsumed into the neoliberal project because it's coming from the transnational sector. So it was but I mentioned in the other one, right? If you point it out, this happening in like the like in the global south, there's something happening, in this and that. And we mentioned if you were to mention, the expelling, they had to expel our diplomats from South American country because they were like instead of doing diplomatic things with the government, they're meeting with like people who might be like want the whatever reason there's some kind of extremist that they could use to like over to the government and like extend the neoliberal project even further, so they expel the U.S. diplomats. Like, right? I mean, they said, but if you point those kind of things out, like what's happened to like the economy or society in South America, like the perception of the person who's been indoctrinated with this left right things is like, oh, you must be one of those like left wing people. When you talk about it here, like the truth is, the reason we don't have healthcare is because we're like same problem. We're subsumed into something where like we lost control over what we do with how we structure our society, quite frankly, in every way, because we're held, a network of banks that are all overseas, own too much of our currency, like we're hostage to them. And we want to let me start talking about, what the currency issue is. And that's called being like here. Then so wait, you're one of those like far right wing people. So okay, so when you point it out in one country, you're accused of being on the far left wing. If you point it out in this country, you're accused of being in a far right wing group. Okay, what's going on? And like the thing I was listening to, that's not why you sent me to the commercial about Belize, but I'm saying I was listening to like Chomsky, like all good anti-intellectuals, like discusses like saying I like just that intellect, so what are being called intellectuals, like that is to say like who appears as like an expert on the TV, who writes these like sort of think pieces in the op-ed section of the newspaper, that Thomas Friedman that wrote the book The World is Flat. Like the people who are intellectuals are the people with privilege who just like someone sent them to a lot of school, their parents sent them to a lot of school, and now they can like do this like intellectual activity and like have a job like that. But the thing is, like the picture they're giving people of reality is a problem because it's not accurate. And it creates this confusion, like where a person who's just like aware of certain things wants to talk to people, like wake them up about it, like anyone would, like young people telling their friends, like, yo, this is going on and that's going on. We can't have healthcare because we don't have control over our economy anymore. Like trying to tell something about the currency, like, do you know like why our diplomats got expelled from South America? Like, someone's trying to tell them all this. The reason they're perceived to be dangerous and radical. Radical meaning either not taken seriously or thought to be like someone who needs to be like put in an institution because they're dangerous, laughed at or like thought to be dangerous are the two ways people experience someone like trying to tell them about reality. But like the point that was being made in the thing I was watching when you directed me to the commercial about Belize is that, right, I mean, the people who are posing as intellectuals, like writing these books and like the academics and the people in the universities and the whole crowd of people with enough privilege to like be an intellectual or like carry that title, they are responsible for the way in which they describe reality, like has an effect on like how people are perceiving. And there was a picture in the paper this morning, like, I don't know, for some reason, but I didn't read the article, but the image is of a giant statue of the Buddha. And, when I have a really close friend who's like a very, seriously, practices Buddhism, and the woman he married is a teacher. She gives the teachings at a Buddhist center and everything. And what I learned, they told me is like, for a Buddhist, like the most important thing one could do is contemplate reality itself. Like that's their sort of like, when I go to the teaching and everything, like that's the activity that's like most like rewarding, to contemplate reality itself and like, reach enlightenment. But see, that's true too about like the fact that like when it comes to the material reality, right, that like our people's picture of like what reality is with regard to like, why we don't have healthcare or economics or what's happening in another country, right? Like people who are like posing as intellectuals or are intellectuals, meaning like someone sent them to a lot of school, are giving people a distorted picture of reality. But you can't break into it because the only thing they would attack you or say you're dangerous or laugh at you unless you could get them to do some contemplation about reality itself. In this case, material reality, and like discover like things like you had like your perception is warped like by book after book after book that are unpopular. Remember, books that talk about reality you have to order from like the independent publishing houses and things. No, what's on the shelves in the bookstore, like if they're written by academics, if that's where someone's getting their picture of reality, they won't know why we don't really have healthcare or why this is happening or why they're playing out this political theater or why our diplomats are being expelled. They won't know. They won't know because they're being told by people with a lot of academic training what reality, what is going on in reality, and it's not accurate. Let's stop there.